Welcome everybody. I hope you can all hear me. Hello, my name is Alison Cameron. I am a patient and I also work with the NHS Horizons team, who are bringing to you the first ever People's Transformathon CoPro 16. In the 5-year forward view, it talked about a new relationship with patients and communities. But what does that actually mean in practice? That's what this day is devoted to, really giving you some good practical tips, not about rhetoric, not about words, not about putting people at the center and all of that we know about, but how it's actually already happening out there in practice. And this is, I have to say, a fantastic example of how to work in genuine co-production. This all came about from a group of rather fed up patients, myself included. I was particularly ranty, but I wanted to give a shout out to the original gang whose conversation basically rather tired of the status quo of when there's efficiencies having to be made in big events, the first thing to get cut being patient and public involvement because it's seen as an extra, when in fact it's our core business, or should be. So some of the original gang will be joining later in the day, but I really wanted to thank the original, all women, I have to say. Sisters are doing it for themselves. But yes, Anya de Jong, a fantastic educator, self-management coach, rising star, general superstar. Karen Maskell doing fantastic work with Bracknell and Ascot CCG. Lynn Craven, you'll be meeting later, from Self-Management Partnership, and Christine Morgan, of course, from the she's a member of the Coalition for Collaborative Care. We are all of us patients. We work alongside the demands of our health, and that can be a real struggle at times. But out of small acorns, amazing oak trees can grow. So from our conversation, instead of just ranting in the them and us typical relationship that we usually have, we decided to see if we could model a different way of approaching this. Put the idea to Helen, Bevan and team, and it took them roughly 3 nanoseconds to take this on. And as a result, working in partnership, in equal partnership, because we need all perspectives, which includes the professional. This is an everyone included event, granted Tier 4 from Stanford in the US. And we are the first healthcare organization worldwide to achieve that. So we're very, very proud of that fact. So I'm now going to hand over to my co-host for the day, who is Helen Bevan, who is going to talk us through the next few slides. Helen, over to you.
Presenters' rights. That will be great. Fantastic. So first of all, just an overview of what we're going to be doing in the next 8 hours. So this is our welcome and introduction and provocation session. And then at 1 o'clock, we'll be moving over to our topic on equality and narrowing inequalities. And we've got colleagues joining us from West Yorkshire, from co-producing leads, and also the Sustainability and Transformation Plan lead. Then at 2 o'clock, we've got a session around care and support being person-centred. At 3 o'clock, the focus is on services being created in partnership with citizens and the community. At 4 o'clock, we've got an international perspective. We're very excited that colleagues are joining us from the USA, and you know, that's about supporting carers, and we're then going to also have a UK perspective on that. At 5:30, our topic is around voluntary, community and social enterprise and housing sectors being key partners and enablers, and we're very excited to have colleagues from the housing sector. Then at 6:30, we are going to be looking at volunteering and social action as key enablers. And then finally, at 7:30, we're going to hear back from our panel in terms of rounding up from the event. And what you'll see is that the themes are the 6 principles for engaging people and communities, okay, 6 principles for co-production that were developed as by the People and Communities Board for the 5-year forward view. So hopefully we should have an amazing day. So let's just talk a little bit about this next session. So the people that you're meeting on this session, Alison you've met already, and myself, and we're your co-hosts. We're also going to meet Carol Reid, and Carol is an honorary member of the Horizons team, and she's our event director, and she's really made this whole 8 hours happen. And Carol will be taking a lead both behind the scenes and on the screen, so we'll be seeing her quite a lot during the next 8 hours. And then finally, the last speaker that you'll hear in this session is Jeremy Taylor, who's the Chief Exec of National Voices, and Jeremy will be taking us through and talking about those 6 principles for engaging people and communities. So let's just get going. So the whole idea of this event is how can we get people to connect and communicate and share their great practice for free. So everybody has given their time for free today, which is absolutely amazing. And the spirit of today is that it isn't just like a broadcast where everybody sits and listens passively to hopefully what will be some very, very good speakers. How we would like today to be is true interaction, conversation, discussion. Because actually we believe that conversation is transformational. And so there's several different ways that we'd like you to connect. So the first is to use the chat box. So if you look on your screen and you look in the bottom right-hand side, you can see a chat box. Okay, and what we'd like you to do is to put some messages in that chat box, and we'd like you to send it to all participants. Okay, there's various people that you can choose to send it to, but if you send it to all participants, then everybody will see it. So let's just have a little practice now. So it would be really wonderful if everybody or everybody that can send a little message of solidarity or where you are, how you're feeling, what your hopes are in the chat box now. Just heard from Wendy Lewis. Wendy's looking forward to the day. That's fantastic. And we've got Christine and Mandy who are here, who are going to be doing the 3 o'clock session. That's great. Vittorio, we've just heard from, who's in Devon, and Stephanie Reid. That's wonderful. Kevin's here from Stanford Healthcare. That's really fantastic. We've got Beth from Slough Borough Council. We've got Sarah from Torbay. We've got Jodie in Birmingham, and Ian, who I know is in the northeast. That's really great. So please keep adding stuff in the chat box, and let's have a parallel conversation going on. We also want to encourage you to tweet using the hashtag CoPro16, so that's CoProduction16. And just to introduce you to some other people that are going to be helping us. We've got Dominic, who is our chat monitor, and he's got the unenviable task of trying to stay on top of the chat and feeding back to us. And we also have Kate Pound, and Kate is our Twitter monitor, and she's going to be seeing what's happening in the Twitter sphere. And what we will do at various times during the day is that we will stop and we will find out what's going on in the chat and what's going on in Twitter. All of these sessions are going to be recorded. Each hour is going to be recorded individually, and we'll put those on the website. So hopefully we can have a fantastic interactive 8 hours. So let's get into the spirit of interaction. So first of all, we're going to find out who's with us and where on earth you are. Now, if you look on the top left-hand side of your screen, you'll see a little pen mark. Okay, and then if you go down about 4 tools, you'll see a pen tool. Okay, will you press your pen tool, and will you write, just show us where you are, just do a little blob. Okay. So hopefully everybody's got access to the pen tool. We've got some arrows as well. Arrows are fine. Okay, can everybody see that? See where the pen tool is? I'm just going to, on my screen, I'm just going to show you where it is. So, okay. Okay, let me see that. Great, let's see where we are then. Let's go on to the next slide. Let's see where we are in the UK. So where in the UK are you? And again, you can either put an arrow or a blodge. Okay, let's see where you all are. Now we've got a couple of people who have put down blogs as other.
Good morning, everybody. Just quickly to let you know, we're just having a couple of audio issues. We'll be back with you shortly.
It's not on.
Hi, Helen. We can hear you now.
Hi. Can you hear me now? Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Again.
So sorry. Yeah. Lovely. So if you put yourself in the other, a couple of you did, will you put in the chat box what kind of other you are? So Jo has said that she is another. So if you're another, can you put it in the chat box? Great. Anyway, but I think it's yeah, just looking at who we've got taking part, a really nice mix of experts by experience, voluntary community and social enterprise sector and health and care. Yeah. Okay. So, just a couple of our others. So we've got Jo from Warrington CCG, who's a management trainee in service improvement. So welcome, Jo. And another Jo, who is an NHS England programme coordinator. So welcome, Jo. And Alison, who's another, because she never really fitted into anything. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I've got a little job at the beginning to create some provocation for the day. And what I want to talk about is a framework which actually comes from research into civic activists that I think creates a really helpful framework for thinking about the People's Transformathon and how we work with people and communities. And this comes from a researcher in the USA called Harry Hahn. And what Harry Hahn did was look at civic activists and the different roles that civic activists played to work out which kinds of activists are most successful at delivering change. So when we were actually putting together the People's Transformathon for today, it just reminded me of this framework so much, and I want to just tell you about it. So, Harry Hahn identified 3 different kinds of activists, and the first kind she called lone wolves. And lone wolves are people who build power because they've got expertise, because they put information across. And the kind of roles that lone wolves play are about, being advocates, being part of oversight groups, contributing to committees, making public comments, and other forms of consultation. And what strikes me is that very often we use patient leaders and patient representatives in the health and care system as lone wolves more than almost any other kind of role. And I took this quote here from Annette McKinnon that I think really brought it home. And she said, what I'm ranting about is the way in which patients are being streamed into advisory subcommittees, the way we are being used as tokens and to help tick off the right box. Where is the attitude that patients are part of the team in healthcare, that we are partners? Why are we always being asked to participate inside a predetermined frame? When will we see co-design of new policies and ultimately co-production? And I can completely appreciate why Annette is saying that. So let's go back to the Harry Hahn framework. And the second kind of activists that Harry Hahn saw are what she calls mobilisers. And mobilisers are people who build power not because they've got the best information or they're the experts that get called on. They build power because they are mobilising people to take part. So mobilisers, what they can do is, if we're having a call to action or we're trying to make a particular thing happen, they're able to call on very large numbers of people to contribute, to take an action, to engage in change. Then the third kind of activists that Harry Hahn talked about are organisers. Organisers, they grow people to be leaders. And so what they're doing is they're identifying and they're recruiting and they're training people to be future leaders, but not future leaders in the way that often we in the health and care system think about leaders in a hierarchy. This is about actual leaders in a network, in a community. And what organisers do is they build community and they protect the strength of the community. And the difference between mobilisers and organisers is that what organisers are doing is that they're creating a structure, a system for the future that can be used again and again, whereas mobilisers are calling on people at a particular point in time. So, looking at those 3 different categories, lone wolves, mobilisers and organisers, and applying them to the way that we think about patient leaders, okay, which ones do you think are most successful at delivering change? What do you think? Maybe put something in the chat box. Yeah? Saying mobilisers, I guess organisers. I'll show you. Okay. The least effective kind of activists are the lone wolves. And actually, what Harry Hahn found was that the most effective are a combined group of mobilisers and organisers. And this is why this framework really struck home to me today, as we're thinking about the People's Transformathon and how we can engage people and communities in a very, very large scale. Because actually, most of the ways in the health and care system that we're working with people and communities is as lone wolves. You know, fit into the existing system, come and be part of our committee. And actually, what we need to be doing is to be growing mobilisers and organisers. And the one thing that I would say about the People's Transformathon and taking part in it today, the panellists, is that actually you see very few lone wolves and an awful lot of mobilisers and organisers, and I think that's the way for the future. Because, you know, I think lone wolves, the lone wolf rule has got a role. You know, we do need to have expert input. But the real, I think, big changes are going to come when we think about mobilisers and we think about organisers and that kind of role. You see, if we look at history and the evidence from the great social movements, they get their energy by growing a distributed leadership. And I'd say that's the direction that we need to be going in, you know, when we think about roles for the future. The evidence is clear. They show us that diverse groups of people brought together consistently make better decisions than small groups of so-called experts. And I think that's why our co-production scene is so important. Actually, if we can bring people together with different experiences, with different backgrounds, with different views, then actually we will make better decisions and we will get better outcomes. And at the end of the day, I think we have to be really clear that this is about power. And this is a lovely blog that was written about a month ago by David Gilbert, and he says, here come the patientistas. And, you know, he says, now we need in-reach. We need to be like an octopus and reach into systems and the organisational structures and change them. And ironically, the citadels of power are desperate to change. Healthcare professionals are beginning to reach out to work with us, can see that we can reframe problems, bring different solutions, change dynamics, etc. You know, that kind of diversity at work. And we don't need to be like lone wolves waiting for permission or waiting to be given a role in a formal structure, because we're everywhere, working in diverse ways, that diversity word again. But we have to step up and talk properly about power. And again, you know, when we think about lone wolves, mobilisers and organisers, they're different ways of working with power. Okay? For lone wolves, information is power. But for mobilisers and organisers, people are power. And, you know, I'd say at the end of the day, what is this about? What is the People's Transformathon about? It's about building agency. And agency is about power. Okay? Agency is having the patient, the family at the heart, you know, the person with the active role. And when people have got agency, we see that they're making things, they're creating things, they're doing, they're sharing, they're collaborating, they're co-producing. And I think what we will see today is we will see lots and lots of examples of agency in really wonderful ways. And I think that we need to think about the difference between individual agency and collective agency. Both are important. So when we think about individual agency, you know, we talk about how we're working with self-care, we think about patient activation, we think about shared decision-making. It's about individual patients and families having agency. I think it's important, but I think it will only take us so far. I think the real big opportunities are going to come through collective agency. It's when we come together with a common purpose, with a shared voice, when we co-produce change. And again, we'll see both today. But I think what we'll also see is some really big opportunities in terms of collective agency. So finally, what I think we're about, what I think the People's Transformathon is about disruptive co-creation. And it's about, you know, going beyond the way that very often the people who work in the system think about top-down and bottom-up change. Actually, it's about a co-produced inside-out and outside-in change, beyond the kind of way that people that are leading systems typically see the problem. And I think, again, what we'll see time and time again over the next 8 hours are lots of opportunities about bring disruptive positive disruption into the system for change that's faster and outcomes that are bigger. So I hope that's helpful in terms of a framework for thinking about the People's Transformathon today. Just to say, just a quick plug, there's some references here, and again, if you go onto the website, there's lots and lots of references and resources to use. So I'm just going to stop there, and I'm going to now hand over to Jeremy Taylor, and Jeremy is the Chief Executive of National Voices, and he's also the
Do I come back up to that? We seem to have lost Helen's sound.
Hi, it's Helen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah,
we can hear you, Helen.
Yeah,
Jeremy,
right.
are you with us?
Yeah. So I introduced you, Jeremy, but nobody heard me. I'll introduce you again. So our next speaker is Jeremy Taylor. Jeremy is the Chief Exec of National Voices, and he's also the chair of the People and Communities Board for the 5-year Forward View, who are supporting and sponsoring the People's Transformathon today. And Jeremy is going to take us through the 6 principles for engaging people and communities, which is the underpinning framework for the People's Transformathon today. So, Jeremy, over to you. Hi, it's Helen again. Can you hear me? Yeah, great. So while we're just waiting for Jeremy to reconnect, let's just hear what we've got already in terms of Twitter and the chat box. So I'll go to Kate first on Twitter. Can you hear me, Kate?
I'm just unmuting Kate for you now so she can speak.
Hi, Kate. And
yes, on Twitter, word is getting out that the Transformathon is on. People are getting really excited, and I think people could really relate to your session, Helen, and the concepts that you were talking about. I think the key thing is that people are telling others. There's a social movement, there's a building up energy, and people are getting the word out on social media. Come and join the Transformathon. This is the event to be at today. So I think that's really exciting, and I think the numbers and the swell is beginning to build for today. So that's the kind of key messages I would say from Twitter in the last session.
Fantastic. And is Dom there? Dom, are you there?
Hi everybody, good afternoon. Really loving the chat that's happening at the moment. I can see everybody connecting with each other around the general purpose around co-production. Mandy made a great comment around the suffragette movement and how it was the same kind of language and terminology around getting patients involved versus getting women involved around the issue. So I think we're onto something here, and we can start collaborating with each other as we move forward around this energy that Kate picked up a moment ago on the Twitter activity.
Great. Thanks, Dom. Thanks, Kate. Has Jeremy rejoined us? Can we hear Jeremy?
He hasn't rejoined us yet, Helen. I think he's just trying to reconnect his audio at the moment.
Okay. So while we're just waiting, can we just hear, you know, regarding the model that we were looking at before, which is lone wolves, mobilisers, and organisers. What are your views on that? And you know, how you know, might we use this framework? Let's put some things in the chat box. Okay. Getting some comments, that's good. Social media has how to mobilise and organise. Have we got Jeremy back? Hi Jeremy, can you hear me?
I've left Jeremy unmuted, so as soon as he's back with us, he'll be able to introduce himself.
Okay. So, in the meantime, we're just having a little conversation about this model around lone wolves, mobilisers and organisers, and your reaction to it. Great. So Sarah's asked a question. Anyone with experiences of encouraging lone wolves to join mobilised, organised groups? So how do we move from a situation where we're treating experts by experience and patient leaders, you know, in a kind of lone wolf context? How do we then move, you know, to a situation where we're mobilising and organising? Yeah. Yeah. Can we unmute Alison?
Thank you. No, I thought I like that question, Helen, because if anything, I've made something of a transition. I started working properly within the system, like working with the team here about 2 years ago. And I know that before I had a lot of passion and a great deal of anger, and justifiably so, at some of my experiences. But there were no genuine opportunities or outlets for that were constructive. So for me, what really helped was the opportunity to have training and development opportunities, particularly when they were shared with professionals. That way I got a far greater understanding of the barriers people face within the system, and that the them and us assumptions that I made were only part of the picture, and I was missing this vital part. There aren't enough opportunities like the ones I've had, and so I haven't lost my activism side. I've been told I've toned down from militant to radical, and I find while it may not be quite as much fun in that I don't get to chain myself to the railings quite as often, it actually leads to better results when you collaborate rather than being in conflict. But it doesn't mean that we lose the activism side. It's just something about finding a way to work that doesn't actually cause people to run for the bunkers, because there's a lot of fear around in the system as it is. So that's my experience, if that's helpful. Yeah, please, Carol, from the point of view of you've been working together with me in partnership, in sort of genuine patient-professional partnership. So how has that been? How was it for you, darling?
Well, I think that's the benefit of it, is the fact that we can work together, and through doing the People's Transformathon, what we've tried to do is pull together virtual design groups, so we've got people working in partnership. So it's not that somebody's a patient, that somebody's a lone wolf. It's that actually we're all working on this together with a shared sense. I think that's what's really important, and it really doesn't matter how we do it, but as long as actually we make care how it should be, which is understanding from a patient's perspective, from a carer's perspective, from a volunteer's perspective. Everybody has a valid point, and we just need to sometimes listen and actually hear those voices in the room. So I think that's really important.
So, Tom, can you hear me? Hi, Tom, can you hear me? Tom's from the South Reading Patient Voice. Or Tony?
And I'm
Tom
hearing...
is unmuted. I'll just unmute Tony for you.
Yeah, okay. So, Tony, can you hear me? Put their hands up.
And I think we've got Jeremy as well online.
Hi, Jeremy, can you hear me? Hi, Jeremy, can you hear me?
I've just unmuted you.
Yeah. Hi, Jeremy, can you hear us? So while we're still waiting for Jeremy, let's carry on with the conversation. So a number of people were asking about the questions that, or saying they want to have the conversation that Maxine Craig started. So let's find Maxine's question. Or Maxine, can we unmute you and you can actually say the things that you wanted to say? Can we unmute Maxine?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Maxine, you unmuted.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, hi.
I'm just really interested in when we step outside of the traditional health and social care borders and we begin to think about citizens and all the talents and skills and energy that resides in communities, how we actually use these frameworks and this work for all the work that we need to do in our towns and our neighbourhoods and our communities, really. And I wondered what people thought about that.
What's your sense, Maxine, around what's possible and where this could go?
I think my experience over the last 18 months as a citizen is that people are very passionate about things that they particularly care about, but many citizens don't have any of the experience of this work and have very, very little access to learning about these things so they can become more effective in their mobilising and their organising. So they do feel marginalised, but are very, very passionate about joining up with other people. And I also wonder a lot about how our local authorities and our big hierarchies can enable that and act as facilitators to that energy rather than just using them as lone wolves.
Hello, Jeremy. Sorry, Maxine, hello. I think we've got Jeremy back as well.
Oh, great.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
And welcome,
Could we have
Jeremy,
your vote,
and
please,
thank you, Maxine, for your
Greb?
comments as well.
Okay, well, hello everybody. This is Jeremy Taylor from National Voices. I'm sorry about the technical problems. Now I've probably just helped to create a greater anticipation of what I'm going to say, so then I'll let you all down when you hear what I've actually got to say. No, I'm only joking. So sorry about being late. It's a real pleasure and privilege to be part of the Transformathon. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time, but not very much, talking about the 6 principles. They are another way of expressing some of the thoughts that Helen was expressing earlier about change. The 6 principles were developed by a working group called the People and Communities Board. We were asked to support the development and implementation of the 5-year forward view with a particular focus on chapter 2 of that document. I don't know how many people on this Transformathon have actually read the 5-year forward view. Most people don't read policy documents. Actually, it's quite a good one. And chapter 2 is all about an agenda which says if health and care are to be transformed, the only real way of doing that is to do it in collaboration and as a partnership, and not as a traditional medical model of doing things to people as passive recipients. And chapter 2 is a not half bad attempt at setting out that agenda. And the People and Communities Board worked with a number of the new care model vanguards who said, could you help us work out what chapter 2 really means in practice and how we'd go about embedding some of these principles in our new models of care. The result was the 6 principles, which is an attempt to set out in a more holistic way an agenda which in the past I think has been too fragmented around certain initiatives and activities like patient and public involvement or things that can feel like the kind of tick box approach that Annette McKinnon was describing and which Helen quoted earlier. So this is an attempt to say if you want to put patients at the heart of the NHS, for example, which is a quote that I think you quoted ironically, Alison, at the outset, it isn't just about having committees that you put patients on. It isn't just about asking for feedback. It isn't just about ticking a box. It's actually about understanding that the whole approach needs to be a collaborative one. And the 6 principles essentially map out what that collaboration is. So first of all, a collaboration that engages individuals in decisions about their health and their care and their lives. So everything around person-centered care. And then secondly, it is also a collective partnership approach that's about co-design and co-production, and that the future has to be about not services being developed by experts without regard to their communities, but developed in collaboration with communities. And sometimes the name of the game isn't about a service, it's about the things that are what the communities themselves bring, which aren't necessarily services, they're about support and about relationships. And the third dimension is about a focus on fairness and equality, narrowing health inequalities and ensuring that all groups in society are involved in a conversation about improving health and care. Equality issues are often put in a sort of separate silo and discussed separately. And the point of Principle 3 was to say that issues of fairness and social justice and equality are integral to an approach to co-production and partnership. Number 4 is about carers, about people who are family members and significant others for patients and service users. And the point of making a big thing about carers is that they are still very often out of the picture, and yet we now know that there is so much that can be done and is being done to identify carers, to ensure that they're involved and supported as part of a really important part of the whole picture. And Principles 5 and 6 are related, but also separate. They're about social action, about volunteering, and the role of the voluntary sector. And all the evidence suggests that good health outcomes, well-being more generally, is supported by the actions of everybody, by volunteering and by the role of the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. And wider collaboration across housing and employment and everything that affects health and well-being. And yet a focus on a medical model and on the NHS tends to squeeze out the role of volunteering and voluntary and community organisations. So the 6 principles, and there's a layer of detail that lies behind them, was an attempt to say this isn't about patient and public involvement, it isn't just about engagement, it isn't just about ticking a box, it's about collaboration across all these different domains. And the great thing is there are loads of people doing things that exemplify these approaches. And for me, part of the power of the Transformathon is to kind of share what is going on and try and build a greater sense of momentum to put these principles into practice. So that's the 6 principles. I have only one other slide. I was trying to be economical with my slides so that there was maximum time for interaction and not death by PowerPoint. I can't find a way of going on to my second slide. It's like I'm doomed to be beset with technical problems. There we are. So there has been a fantastic program called Realising the Value. A number of people, I think, in this Transformathon will be aware of it. It was commissioned by NHS England and then delivered by a number of partners, including Nesta and the Health Foundation, National Voices. There were academic partners, the Behavioural Insights Unit from the Cabinet Office, other voluntary organisations, Volunteering Matters, Regional Voices and NAVCA. And together, that program has produced a fantastic array of evidence, tools, practice sites, real-time evaluation evidence, all to do with person-centered, community-focused approaches to health and well-being and care. And I've just taken the value statements that were developed in that program, which are being offered up as an invitation to the national system leaders in particular to adopt. And I think these values are really powerful. They're similar to the 6 principles in that they're all about a principle of partnership working. But I think they're powerful because they're about valuing people and communities, not just doing things to people and communities, not even doing things with people and communities, but actually starting from the position of valuing. And I just want to offer these up as really powerful statements that I think might help generate some energy in our conversation, valuing the creation of health and well-being, valuing people feeling supported and in control and socially connected and independent. Excuse me for reading them out, that's quite dull in one way, but I think they're very, very powerful. Valuing the outcomes that are most important to people in their communities, valuing people's contributions, valuing sustainable outcomes over time, valuing equity. So they cover very similar kind of territory to the 6 principles, but I think they're somehow very powerful and mobilizing, and that they also, I think, challenge the conventional ways of organizing healthcare, which tend to start from the point of view of doing things rather than valuing things. I offer those values as things to reflect on and to energize the discussion. The People and Communities Board is very keen to be part of a movement that makes these values and the 6 principles really real in the way that health and care are done. I guess we have links into the national system, and we're very keen to infect the national system with kind of local grassroots energy. We're also very keen to be able to bring whatever energy and power we have to help people doing these things locally. That's probably enough from me. This is just a deliberately kind of short overview of principles and values that I think are really important, and which are slowly beginning to infect the way that the NHS does its business. Can we find a way of speeding that up? That would be great. So that's probably enough from me for now.
Hi, Jeremy. It's Helen. That was fantastic. Really love the idea of like infecting the system in a viral way. So just got a few minutes left now, and do you know, I think that what might be a really good idea is let's all respond to your challenge. So what if you know, in terms of like how can we infect the system? How can we get everybody, using these values, using the 6 principles? And what would be fantastic? Could we get everybody to write one idea or one approach in the chat box, or tweet one approach around an idea of how we can use these 6 principles and use the values. So let's see what we let's see what we get. And if anybody would like to say something, or like ask a question or respond to Jeremy, will you put up your hand? And then just where that is, if you look under participants, there's a little symbol with a hand, and if you click on that, it'll put your hand up. Okay. Anybody like to ask a question? Okay. Let's see what we've got in the chat box. Got some good ideas in the chat box as well. Okay. So we've got a few things coming here. Role model values be the change from Lynn. That's great. Create spaces for professionals and community-based organisations to get their time and space to discuss the challenges we all face. Any piece of work being planned should start with consideration of the 6 principles and check after them too. I absolutely agree with that. Hildegard put more resources into co-production so that we can pay people for their time to co-produce. Absolutely. Let citizens know that they can be equal partners in their care. That's from Mandy. You know, just lots and lots of ideas here. What we'll do is we'll capture these as well, and we'll feed them back to the people and communities board. So, Jeremy, can you see those ideas that are coming in the chat box there?
I certainly can, yes.
And what's your reaction to some of those ideas?
I'm very excited by all the ideas. So at the moment, I'm just responding to the sheer volume of them. I think that's great.
It's a bit overwhelming, isn't it? Yeah.
No, and I'm really grateful for all the input. I'm not going to try analysing them at this point because I'll probably go slightly crazy if I do. But it looks great.
Brilliant. So what we'll do as well, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming and you know, being part of People's Transformathon. And I think, you know, the big theme that I take, a big piece of feedback from that is just how much potential there is. You know, it's like like Christine Morgan said in the chat box. You know, if we could have a scenario where we thought about the 6 principles of co-production, if we thought about the values, just what a different world you know, we could create.